Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I strongly oppose this undemocratic paternalistic bill. I ask unanimous consent to submit into the record a letter from the Council of the District of Columbia opposing this bill.
Without objection, so ordered.
Last Congress, Republicans introduced 14 bills or amendments to prohibit non-citizens from voting in D.C. or to repeal, nullify, or prohibit the carrying out of D.C.'s law that permits non-citizens to vote. Yet Republicans refuse to make the only election law change D.C. has asked Congress to make, which is the right to hold elections for voting members of the House and Senate. I want to discuss democracy or lack thereof in D.C. D.C. has no voting representation in Congress, and Congress has the ultimate say on local matters. While Congress has the authority to legislate on local D.C. matters, it is not required to do so. In Federalist 43, James Madison said of D.C. residents, quote, a municipal legislature for local purposes derived from their own suffrages will, of course, be allowed them, close quote. The Supreme Court held in 1953 that, quote, there is no constitutional barrier to the delegation by Congress to the District of Columbia of full legislative power, end quote. D.C.'s local legislature has 13 members. If D.C. residents do not like how the members vote, residents can vote them out or pass a ballot measure. That is called democracy. Congress has 533 voting members. None are elected by D.C. residents. If D.C. residents do not like how members vote on local matters, residents cannot vote them out. That is the antithesis of democracy. The substance of H.R. 884 is irrelevant, since there is never justification for Congress to legislate on local D.C. matters. However, I will briefly discuss it. While D.C.'s Local Voting Rights Amendment Act allows non-citizens to vote only in local D.C. elections, non-citizen voting at every level of government has been part of the history of the United States since its founding. 40 states have allowed non-citizens to vote. Nearly 20 cities today allow non-citizens to vote in local elections, and Congress only first prohibited non-citizens from voting in federal elections 29 years ago. I will close with a plea to Republicans: pass the bipartisan D.C. Local Funds Act to reverse the $1 billion cut in the continuing resolution made to the local D.C. budget. That bill has held back at the desk of the House since the Senate passed it 9 weeks ago, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Chair recognizes Ranking Member Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I discuss H.R. 884, I must note that today marks 9 weeks since the Senate passed the bipartisan District of Columbia Local Funds Act of 2025, which would undo the $1 billion cut to the D.C. local budget in the House Republican-drafted fiscal year 2025 full-year continuing resolution. The Republican-led Senate understood immediately the cut's harms and passed the D.C. Local Funds Act within hours of its introduction by Republican Senator Susan Collins, the chair of the Committee on Appropriations in the Senate. On March 28th, President Trump called on the House to pass the D.C. Local Funds Act immediately. Yet Speaker Johnson said last week that the House has been too busy to act on it, though the House found time 2 weeks ago to rename the Gulf of Mexico The D.C. local budget consists entirely of revenue raised by D.C. It's their local tax, which is why the Congressional Budget Office concluded the D.C. Local Funds Act would have, quote, no effect on the federal budget, close quote. For the last 2 decades, Congress allowed D.C. to spend under its current local budget for the duration of every continuing resolution. However, the fiscal year 2025 full-year CR forced D.C. to revert to its fiscal year 2024 local budget. Compounding the harm, D.C. will have to implement the cut with only 4 months remaining in the fiscal year. D.C. may have to lay off or furlough employees, close government facilities, and reduce critical services. I call on Speaker Johnson to bring the D.C. Local Funds Act to the floor immediately and to end this sabotage. I will turn to H.R. 884. I oppose the bill because D.C. should be free to govern its own local affairs. D.C.'s Local Residents' Voting Rights Amendment Act of 2022 allows non-citizens to vote only in local elections, namely for mayor, members of the City Council, State Board of Education, Attorney General, advisory neighborhood commissions, and ballot measures. I thought Republicans believed in local control of local affairs. Regardless of one's view on the merits of non-citizen voting, we must acknowledge that D.C. is not the first or only jurisdiction to permit it. At various points in American history, Congress and 40 states have allowed non-citizens to vote in local, state, territorial, and federal elections. In fact, every state, except one, represented by Republicans on this committee, has allowed non-citizens to vote, including the home state of the chairman and the sponsor of H.R. 884. Today, approximately 20 municipalities permit non-citizens to vote in local elections. This committee is considering the wrong legislation relating to D.C. elections. Instead, as the delegate for D.C. has pointed out, it should be considering H.R. 51, the D.C. statehood bill, which would give more than 700,000 D.C. residents voting representation in Congress and full home rule. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Any other members seek recognition? Seeing none. The question is now on the amendment in the nature of a substitute. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is agreed to. The question is now in favorably reporting H.R. 884 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the bill is ordered favorably reported as amended. A vote has been requested. As previously announced, further proceedings on the question will be postponed. Our next item for consideration is H.R. 2096, the Protecting Our Nation's Capital Emergency Act of 2025. The clerk, please designate the bill.
H.R. 2096, the Protecting Our Nation's Capital Emergency Act of 2025, a bill to restore the right to negotiate matters pertaining to the discipline of law enforcement officers of the District